drama is keeping up in the festive spirit. And for our first guest, we have Zalmen Mlotek, who has maneuvered the Folksbiene into the 21st century. And considering they've been around for 160 years, this is quite an accomplishment. And he's just coming off the Chanukah spectacular, which really was spectacular. I can't tell you. Afterwards, I got so many phone calls from everyone telling me, you have to see this, you have to. I said, I'm trying to watch it. Will you let me watch it already? It was fantastic.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It was what Eva is referring to is a Chanukah. We decided to do a gift to the community, a Chanukah show that would be more than just your typical concert and speeches, but really to embrace the medium. You know, here we are, a theater company trying to reinvent ourselves online. So we engaged Adam B. Shapiro, who is a incredibly talented videographer and actor. And together we came up with a program, a 90-minute program where, because of our fiddler, the Yiddish fiddler had such a success, I was able to approach many of the celebrities who had come to visit Fiddler. People like Billy Crystal and Carol Burnett and Neil Sedaka, Barry Manilow, Itzhak Perlman, and Beanie Feldstein, a whole bunch of people, Joel Gray, of course. And they gave messages, you know, kind of celebratory messages. But then I engaged over 80 artists from all over the world, and from people from all over America, sort of like the Democratic Convention. Remember how they opened, how everyone was in their different state. So in the same way, we had people from Chicago singing about Chicago in Yiddish, of course, with subtitles. Everything was with English subtitles. So for all of your listeners who are afraid of, you know, I don't understand Yiddish, it's the same thing. We always have subtitles, like our Yiddish fiddler had subtitles. So it was a tremendous success, and it was only up for 96 hours. That's the Theater Authority regulations allows us to use equity actors, but only allows it to be online for 96 hours. So we had children involved as well, and we had Mayim Bialik and Beanie Feldstein, Dr. Ruth, of course. What else can I tell you, Eva? It was a fun evening. I'm so glad that you enjoyed it.
Not just me, but everyone, and of course, it all started. I mean, this Yiddish fiddler really took a hold of everyone. And the thing is, it's like all of us who have, of course, you know, seen Fiddler, because everyone keeps saying representation, and Fiddler is our Jewish representation. When that came out, it was like, oh my gosh, Jews on Broadway. Oh, it was the most exciting thing. But to see it in Yiddish was so, it was like you've never seen it before. How did this come about? And how did you realize you had a juggernaut on your hands?
Yeah, no, we didn't realize. I mean, I had always wanted to do Fiddler. As a kid, I grew up listening to the music. And also, I heard about the Yiddish version that they had done in Israel in the 60s. And so I always in my head wanted to do a Yiddish fiddler, but I knew that in order to present a fiddler in New York, a Yiddish fiddler, it would have to be on the same artistic level that anybody's eyes memory can imagine seeing Fiddler, whether it was Broadway or it was on film. So it took us a while to be able to have a budget that could support such a production. As it was, a typical Fiddler production has 40 people on stage. We had 26 at downtown. So we condensed it and people doubled. But Joel, I realized that in order to do Fiddler, I really wanted to attach a name. I wanted to attach a name involved, because I knew that anybody really could, not anybody, but anybody who knew Fiddler could do it, whether they spoke Yiddish or not. I thought Joel spoke Yiddish because of his father was Mickey Katz, the Yiddish singer, satirist, but he actually didn't speak Yiddish. So we actually rehearsed we rehearsed the scenes in English and then did them in Yiddish. When we announced that Joel Gray was going to direct our Yiddish Fiddler, we had over 2,500 inquiries for people to audition. We auditioned 700 people, and we picked 26 based on, of course, their stage worthiness. They can sing, dance, act, everything else, and be able to present the Yiddish in a way that was, sounded real to our ears, native Yiddish speakers. So it was a sold-out run downtown at the Museum of Jewish Heritage from July 4th, 2018 for 6 months. People uptown heard about it, and we, thanks to Hal Luftig and Jana Robbins and Roy Gabay and a bunch of other producers, brought us up to stage 42, where we ran for also close to a year. We closed on in January of 2019. Yeah, 20.
Are you going to be touring it? Once the vaccine, and you have. Is it going to go? Is this going to be like Cats and end up in like 100,000 countries?
We had set a whole tour was set. We were supposed to go to China, of course, and China, that was the first thing. They were going to bring the whole company to China. In Australia, they were going to do their own. They were going to do their own production, and a bunch of us from the creative team went down to Melbourne and Sydney and to audition in February of this year, 2020, to audition a whole new cast, and we came up with a whole new cast to go into rehearsals in the summer, but of course that didn't happen.
Eddie, you had something to say about this too, I think, before we started here. That was nice.
Yeah, I just wanted to weigh in on this, that this was the most uplifting, loving, and hopeful thing that I've seen since COVID, even before. And I was quite amazed at all these people that showed up who unexpected, even though I read the press release and et cetera, et cetera. But I also wanted to tell Zalmen that when I was a little boy, I used to go down, my grandma would bring me to all the Yiddish theater, Molly Buchanan, et cetera. And actually in the East Village, where I live, I still live, I've been in my apartment for 50 years, pay $1 a week. But anyhow, I was so thrilled to see this Hanukkah spectacular.
Well, thank you.
I found it life-changing in a way. It gave me hope.
I'm so happy to hear it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And speaking of hope, Folksbiene still is doing things. You've got Folksbiene Live. You've got Soul to Soul coming up. And then Vicky Ann Gordon and Michael Corey, who did the lyrics for Grey Gardens, is doing the Gardens of Finzi. I'm going to get this wrong. Finzi Country.
Garden of the
Jojo Bassani novel, which I'm super excited about. I mean, I love everything you do, but just the idea of expanding the idea of what the Jewish community is was such a major part of the spectacular, with people from Japan and just everywhere. And I think the COVID experience really made this spectacular of bringing everybody together in a shared community. And Bassani for years had been writing about the Jewish community in Ferrara, and he had a tremendous success with the book and then the De Sica film. And I'm wondering, what is it like to make an opera of it? I never, expected in that medium, and what language is it in?
Well, it's the work of Michael Corey and Ricky and Gordon. Mm-hmm. So they have created this opera. It's going to be in English, mm-hmm. And it's absolutely beautiful. I've been listening to it, studying it, and we're very excited to present it sometime later this year or early 22. We don't have exact dates yet, but that will be one of the first things that we present coming out.
Kind of a Jewish Renaissance, a Yiddish Renaissance, because I think more and more people are becoming interested in the language, and the Yiddish Fiddler on the Roof was really a major, I think, turning point for that.
Yeah.
Do you have like more plans for like education and expansion of the community in the future?
Absolutely. We did a piece last year based on the story of Hannah Senesh, who was the Hungarian fighter, freedom fighter. It was also an English piece, and we invited children because although she was killed by the Nazis, it was an important piece as a young person to see how a young woman actualized herself and actualized her dreams of self-preservation. And we had children. We intend to bring it back and bring a whole slew of school children. We're doing a whole study guide about it.
Your concerts are still going on in your living room, right?
Yes, absolutely. We do weekly concerts, and Matel Didner, my associate, does a weekly Yiddish lessons also for anybody who's interested. So.
And we didn't get a chance to talk about Soul to Soul, but all this information can be found on your website,
Yes.
which you should go to because there's a plethora of events going on, and Yiddish has such a wealth of material to go into. I mean, it's just like, even when they do Yiddish King Lears and things, it's so much fun. And now for our next guest, which is getting our stamp of approval with artistic stamp, is Liz Adams, a playwright who is involved in this very interesting theatrical virtual event. Tell us about it.
Hi. I know my little thing says Liz Adams, but my writing name is Liz Duffy Adams.
I thought so, but I mean, I thought, well, maybe Liz
Just
Adams.
being modest with characters when I typed that in. I don't know. But I like to keep the Duffy in honor of my Dubliner grandmother. Anyway, yes, Artistic Stamp, which is this amazing brainchild of two theater directors, Shelley, Butler, and West Hines. When the theaters all shut down because of the pandemic, they came up with this really amazing idea of a way to do something that felt theatrical and that involved and gave some work to playwrights and actors in a completely different form. Because everybody, the whole theater world for the last year has been sort of, we all know, flailing around like what, Zoom theater has some possibilities, but it's not quite the same thing. And some people, don't find it satisfying. Although I think it's only just begun to be mined for how, it can be a useful addition to what we can do. But so Artistic Stamp, which Shelley and West created, has playwrights writing a series of letters, actors doing the actual handwriting of them, and some improvising, because people subscribe to the letters and they get the letters, and they don't have to, but they very often write back. It's optionally interactive. So they might write back and say, oh, I want to tell you about a thing. And then the character who is writing the letters sort of needs to keep the story going, but also respond directly. It's kind of fabulous. It's really exciting. I've never done anything like it.
So you're like a pen pal with a literary character.
Yes, exactly. And the question, I think for each of the writers, the question of what makes it, because West and Shelley tend to refer to them as plays, even though the form is a little bit more like an epistolatory short story, but the idea of coming at it from a theatrical point of view, thinking in terms of story and character and engagement with the audience is actually really exciting challenge.
It's like we're using 18th century device with 21st century technology.
Yeah, and we've all, all of us in this group are old enough to remember when you wrote letters to your friends, and the mail would sometimes have a letter or a postcard, which was lovely, and now it's all email, which is not remotely as satisfying, or texts, or Zoom now. But so the idea of also reviving the excitement of getting mail that is, more creative, richer, a form of literature, I think I just love that they came up with that. I think it's brilliant.
So what's your story about? What are your characters?
Mine is called Wild Thyme, Thyme, and it's drawn from characters from Midsummer, A Midsummer Night's Dream. You always forget where to put the apostrophes. And it's a sort of a sequel. It takes place a few months after the events of Shakespeare's play. And there is a modest element of mystery in it, so I have to be careful not to do spoilers, but it involves more the world of fairy than the mortal world. You know, Shakespeare's emphasis was a little bit more on the mortal lovers, and the fairies were sort of the context. So you know, one of the elements that I find exciting about Midsummer is when you, especially rereading it and thinking about the way the world of fairy affects the natural world, and also in Shakespeare's idea, royalty, people with power affect the natural world. You know, like when Duncan is murdered, when the king is murdered in Macbeth, storms happen, and people, you know, this is something that really happens. So, and in Midsummer, the sense that Oberon and Tanya are fighting is throwing the world off balance. It's damaging the world, the human world and their world. And that feels very present to me right now, the way our bad behavior is affecting the natural world that we rely on. So anyway, that's, I know I didn't really talk about the characters specifically, but I'm sort of trying to evade talking about exactly who the characters are, but that's the context for them.
How long have you been developing this very interesting process?
It's, you know, this is the second round of letters for West and Shelley for Artistic Stamp. I'm joining in the second round. So they've been doing it for a few months, but I'm just jumping in. I mean, it's been a rapid process. So, you know, I came up with the idea, brainstormed it with Shelley and West, started writing it to figure it out, you know, gave them an outline of the arc of letters, but I'm still every day I'm revising the outline as I find out, you know, what will really happen. And also there's this idea of branching, where at the end of one letter, the character might say, you know, help me, my correspondent, should I do X or Y? And then depending on what they reply, they get a different letter, the next letter. And so it sort of branches out and then comes back together by the end. That takes a little thinking. So I'm trying to answer your question. It's really only been a few weeks. Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to write at least a first draft of all the letters before the first one goes out in January, you know, so that I have a firmer grasp of the whole story. It's challenging for me because I'm a write to find out writer. Like, I don't do outlines normally, but it's also really thrilling and exciting to speed up the process. I'm just working on it hours a day and really enjoying it. But yeah, I think they start coming out, and mine starts coming out in January.
In Midsummer, I was always curious about the Indian boys that they refer to, and it's kind of like a bone of contention between them, because they both want to like have him for themselves. Yes. Does he have any say in this matter in your play?
He's coming into it. So far, he's not on stage, but he is very much referred to, because, you know, in Midsummer, that's the bone of contention, and then Oberon does this unforgivable, terrible thing to Tanya by making her fall in love with, you know, this mortal with an ass head. And at the end when she comes back to her senses, she was like, whoa, what happened? I had this crazy dream. And he's like, oh, don't worry about it. I'll tell you about it later. You know, he gets his way. So that is actually very much part of the story. The fact that she never did get the story, and she's finding out now what happened. Plus there is a new similar, you know, fairies traditionally in folklore, fairies rarely, if ever, procreate. They're immortal. They don't really need to, but there are some traditions where they can have babies, but very often there's this tradition of stealing mortal babies and leaving a changeling, which could be like a carved block of wood, like really cruel. because that's the way they get babies. So that bone of contention between that boy feels a little like, you know, childless people stealing children, you know. So that is very much a part of the story of Wild Thyme.
Well, it was very nice to meet you, Liz, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Now to talk about that perennial favorite, A Christmas Carol. And I know you have a lot of Christmas carols to choose from. This one, to me, is a real ghost story. I was jumping out of my skin. With the atmospheric lighting of Ben Stanton, the authentic costume and murky set design of Dane Laffrey, I was completely transported into a suspended place in time inside a fever dream, and not because of a bit of undigested gruel. And you know Jefferson Mays is such a whiz at portraying different characters. I mean, he's also a walking Foley character because he makes these myriad sound effects. I mean, he even does an indignant potato, and that's what I call acting. I bet Laurence Olivier couldn't even do that, and he was a Russian potato salad named after him. I can't recommend this enough. It will take your breath away, leave you gasping for breath as you watch it with bated breath. And it was filmed exclusively this fall at New York's United Palace and is based on the wildly acclaimed 2018 production, which made its world premiere at Los Angeles' Geffen Playhouse. Definitely happy face, but I think Mark might want to say something too.
Well, yeah, I really enjoyed it. Jefferson Mays is phenomenal. I wasn't scared though. I mean, and I still think I prefer, you know, what is it, the 1950 movie with Alastair Sim? You know, so, but, you know, like the fact that he could be a one-man show for almost an hour and 40 minutes, totally compelling, and really being like a cast of 50. So, you know, that's, you know, a pretty rare accomplishment. Also, I like that they were really very faithful to Dickens' literary devices because they called each part of it a stave, which I've never seen used in any other literary work. It's like a stanza of a song. And it really reminds us that Dickens intended the novella to be a kind of song, and the voice would be extremely important for a song. And by Jefferson Mays embodying all these different possibilities of the voice, it's an amazing adaptation.
Speaking of song, you've got going on till January, and this is going on till January too. So we have some stuff that's actually going on for the whole month. It's called Sing Your Hallelujah. It's basically a documentary put together by Shoshana Beam, where she's taken over the Apollo Theater to put on a Christmas show. A nice Jewish girl putting on a Christmas show with her friends, Gavin Creel, Jared Grimes, Jeremy Jordan, Shayna Steele, Connie Talbot, and Daniel J. Watts. And it shouldn't all just be sing your hallelujah, but tap dance your hallelujah. There's this tap dancer that is so smoking. He does this wonderful drum thing, you know, he does the tapping, and the drum is with the drum instead of with another tapper. And I just wish his feet had been lit more because, I mean, it was so fast you couldn't even see his feet. It was like the speed of sound was broken with his feet. And there was this incredible spoken word one that they did. And she was trying to find a nice Jewish song too. You know, there aren't any Hanukkah songs. So she chose Leonard Cohen's song about faith called If It Be Your Will. Anyway, it's really fantastic and I really recommend it, and it'll just really put you in the holiday spirit.
In 1926, Mae West wrote and produced a Broadway play called Sex, about a prostitute with a heart of gold. Back then, even the word sex wasn't said out loud, especially in polite society, nor were prostitutes considered suitable subjects for the performing arts. In spite of that, the play, described by the New York Times as crude and inept, was quite successful, with healthy ticket sales and a decent run. For a while anyway, until the New York Society for the Suppression of Vice joined with various religious groups to have it closed. Sex, as originally written, does appear to have been crude and inept. With 3 acts that run for over 2.5 hours, it definitely challenges the shortened ambition spans TV has forced upon us. That said, I was absolutely enchanted with the elan and charm brought to this ambitious historical piece by our colleagues in Seattle. Granted, Seattle is about as off Broadway as one can get, but their work is entirely professional, as good as any Zoom work I've seen, and it certainly deserves to be included as part of the increasingly important independent theater movement. Running live through today, December 19th, Sex is well worth a look. It's a happy face all around.
And now to carry on with things that are carrying on right now, here is Jay Michaels with Indie Influencer.
Greetings, this is Jay Michaels, and this is Indie Influencer. Today's a very special Indie Influencer because I'm talking about the greatest of Indie Influencers. That's high drama itself. For more than a quarter of a century, Eva Heinemann has been reporting, reviewing, and reveling in the world of off-Broadway. Her television program, the first of its kind to my knowledge, on Spectrum Cable, has opened off-Broadway and put it into the psyche of theater-going public everywhere. One has to imagine how many shows in those 25 years has Eva and her elite fighting force of writers and reviewers, including stage sage Jan Ewing and William Cataldi, have influenced. How many artists' careers were propelled by high drama and their selfless support? Well, I'll tell you one. 20 years ago, a very nervous classical director was opening a production of Oedipus Rex at the Greek consulate, and he needed a great review to get it propelled further. The joyous review received by high drama sent that production to HBO's summer stage in Bryant Park. And from this very nervous director, Eva, thank you. To all of you, have a joyous and wonderful holiday season, safe, happy, and healthy. And here's to a new reality in 2021. This is Jay Michaels for High Drama.
It's December 19th, and going on tonight is me and the late, great Barry Lehman's favorite event of the season. Metropolitan, now virtual Playhouse, doing It's a Wonderful Life. They're still managing to pull it off, so maybe I'll be Uncle Billy for the 3rd time. I just hope I didn't get there too late in order to register to play a part. So that's December 19th at 8 o'clock. You can watch it, you can participate in it. It's so much fun.